I'm going to realign the raw edge with my placemat. I'm going to start back where I left off with my stitching, sinking my needle in where I left off. You can do a little lock stitch or a little back stitch. And I'm going to sew all the way up to the little end of the thread over here, or the pink dot. When I get there, I'm going to do a little lock stitch. Now I'm going to turn my binding on the corner like so. I'm going to have this guy lay over like so. And I'll put a little pink dot so you can see it. This is where my thread ended when I stitched that little triangle at the top. Now I'm going to place this under the presser foot. I'm going to start stitching at the end of those other threads where that pink dot that you can see is. Do a little lock stitch there as well. And I'm going to sew along this long edge, or this other edge of my placemat, until I'm again about 3 inches away from this corner. And then all of the steps that I did here, I will repeat. Now at this time, I'm going to go ahead and finish these other 3 corners and let you then see how to get the end of the tape into this little area so that when you wrap it around, you don't have raw edges and uglies showing. So I'll be right back. Okay, I got all the corners stitched, and now it's time to show you how to get the binding to finish up nice and cleanly. Here, all the corners are done. So when I turned my last corner, I did everything as before, stitched to the stitch line, and then the line, and then stitch, and then I stitched a little ways and I had to stop so that I could do this last step. So I'm going to lay the tape, the binding, across the edge, and I'm going to make sure that, do you see where this little, well, it's brown on brown here, that's where I started stitching when I was about 1/2 inch below that fold. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this to that pink mark, and that's where I'm going to cut my binding. This binding gets tucked inside of this binding, and it's going to match up perfectly because I just trimmed it. So that's where the little tunnel comes in. Yay, isn't that pretty? Then I'm going to go back to where I left off and stitch and finish stitching all the way. I'll cross over this and I will stitch across here. So wonderful, wonderful. Isn't that pretty? Okay, now watch this. I'm going to turn these little corners around the corner. I have a little point turner tool I can use to help me poke my little mitered stitched corners, make them pointier. Oh my, check that out. Stitched, no hand sewing required, and that's the back, no hand sewing required. So what I'm going to be doing is turning every corner with this little point turner and getting it shaped. I'm going to be using my iron and pressing this nice and open so that I have the full amount that I need. I'm going to turn it out over, and I'm going to be pulling and wrapping around the edges like so. Okay, and then I'm going to be pinning. Now I like to do this last stitching on the front of my fabric, so my pins will be on the front. I will go in and back out. But while I'm doing that, I'm kind of twisting and making sure that this folded edge is overlapping. I'm going to draw it in for you. This previous stitching line, I want this folded edge to come over and at least cover that previous stitching line that I did my first time around with this binding. And I will be pinning all the way around this placemat. Once I've pinned all the way around the, pressed and pinned all the way around the placemat, then that's when I chose a decorative stitch on my sewing machine. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to just kind of give you the little finale here. I aligned this edge with the edge of my presser foot where the window was, like that. I just picked a place on here, and then I chose a decorative stitch, and the decorative stitch stitched all this down and I went all the way around the placemat, and that successfully ends up nailing this down. So I don't have to go back and do any slip stitch hand sewing back here. I don't have to be too fussy about stitching in the ditch. I just made it easy on myself and did a decorative stitch, which embellished the project. So if you want to see more tutorials with me and fun projects, just visit SewVacOutletBlog.com. Also, I teach classes, and my website is StitchinJenny.com. I look forward to showing you more fun projects soon. Thanks for watching.